Her name is Hilda, or Hildy they call her. She's 95 years old and she's still living. And anyway, I was a little bit embarrassed, to say the least, when I was going there with my wife and kids, and I got so nervous. I was like, what's this going to be like? And honey, I was out actually apologizing to my wife. I remember when we were at the Minneapolis airport saying, oh, Rachel, I'm so sorry. Like, I'm just bringing you. You're going to meet this whole family that we don't even know, and we're just doing this like now. You know? And I heard this voice in the spirit. You know, I was proud of my biological mother, but I didn't know what to think of my father. I just didn't know, you know. I was like, it's kind of odd, you know. And I remember the Father saying, I don't want you to be embarrassed of what I made you from. Because it was perfect. I thought, oh, I'm just hearing that myself. And I heard it, and my spirit just kept coming to me. That's what I made you from, Jason. You're a child of promise. I made you. And I heard the voice of the Spirit say, the genealogy of Jesus is all beautiful. Rahab the harlot, David, it's all beautiful, Jason. There's no difference. That's what I made him. This is what I made you from. And then I find out that my biological father, you know, not a believer, pot smoker, while he's blowing out his pot smoke, he's saying, we can't take the life of this child. We got to do everything in our power, to my mother, we got to do everything in our power to save this child. My mother's like, yeah, we need to do everything in our power. Then everybody rallied around. We got to do everything in our power. Grandmothers, my grandmother on my father's side, I found out, she was willing to work 4 jobs. She was already working 3 jobs because my father's father had died drinking himself, I think, to death. And she was already working 3 jobs. She says, I'll work another job. I didn't know any of this. I'll work another job to keep this child. My grandmother on my mother's side said, I'll take the child, even though she was having another one. I have an aunt that's only like a year older than me. So she had just had a child, and she's like, I'll keep the child, I'll take the child. So in an instant, I find out that not only was I not rejected, but my mom kept me for 4 months. She made me all these little knit clothing. And when she sent me off for adoption, she wrote this letter in handwriting, and she wrote at the top, she said the words of Laban to Jacob, while we are apart, I pray that God will keep covenant between you and me. And then she began to write in handwriting, so she didn't have this. I was the only one that had it, and it was a closed adoption. So when I opened up the adoption, all this stuff came to me first. So 32 years go by, and my mother has felt all this shame. 32 years have gone by, and I've felt all this rejection. And in one day I find out that I wasn't rejected at all. I mean, when you're adopted, this is what will happen to you if you've been adopted. Who's adopted in this room? Raise your hand. You know what I'm saying? I love to jog. I love to run. I'll be running 4 miles, and I'll think the only thing I knew is that my father was, you know, had Native American blood. His father was Native American Sioux. And he dies. I don't know what he died from. He dies when he's 13. I don't know what he died from, so I'm running along, and you have a little heartache, and you feel like you're going to have a heart attack. This neurotic, crazy stuff, you have to keep saying, oh God, I put that away, I don't believe that. Man, in one day, all that was erased. In one day. Do you know what else was erased? I realized that my mom, I get there, my mom's trembling. She almost falls over. We actually met at the Mall of America because it was raining and we had children. What a place to meet for the first time. You know what I mean? I think back, it's crazy. We meet at Mall of America, and we meet at Legoland in Camp Snoopy. Because we're trying to find a place where we can meet, and I didn't feel comfortable going to her home. It's odd, but you just don't. You're just like, I'm jumping into this thing. So we get to Legoland. There's all of our kids. There's my wife and I, we meet her, and she's about ready to fall over. And I realize as she's talking to me, she's like, yeah, I felt like you were going to be majorly angry at me. I wasn't even angry at her at all. I find out she has all this shame that's been on her for all these years, 32 years. So much shame from that sinful experience. That she had done something so horribly wrong that if anybody knew about it, she'd be just shamed. She was a Sunday school teacher, and until 8 years ago, she was terrified to tell anybody that had even happened. Afraid of the shame. So here I am, afraid of the rejection, and here she is afraid of the shame, and we meet, and we ride a roller coaster together. You know what I mean? Because we don't know what else to do. Then we just start talking. She said, I thought you'd be really angry at me because everybody says, while we're on this roller coaster, it was odd. We're riding on a roller coaster. I thought you'd be ashamed of me. And you're trying not to scream because it's so intimate, and everybody's screaming, and you're going down. Yeah, me too. Oh, and you're just trying to be normal and talk, but you're on a roller coaster. It was crazy. I mean, it's crazy when I think about it. She says, I thought you'd be... I felt so much shame. I felt so much guilt. I felt so much condemnation. So I went home that night and I slept on that. And in the morning I woke up and the first thing on my mind was, I make all things new. And the Lord began to reveal to me what that really means. That, see, He didn't just throw me into the sea of the forgetfulness when my mother said, I'm sorry for that sin. What what God does is He takes the product of that sin and He makes it all new. So many, many, many more miracles have happened since then. I'm going to try to meet my biological father. He really wants to meet, and he's real excited. Think about this. He makes it all new. Born of spirit. Oh, man, we're not only children of promise. I mean, it's like amazing to believe that I'm a child of promise. Whew. It's like nothing can shake that. Everything that she wrote in that letter, she wrote the Psalms of David, that I'd be a worshiper. She wrote Proverbs, that I'd be wise beyond my years, that God would instill in my heart wisdom at an early age, and if He did, then she would rejoice. She wrote that I'd be obedient to my parents. Weird stuff like this, that I'd begin to read the Bible at a young age. My dad will tell you right now, my dad that raised me, he'll tell you that the first thing I asked for when I was 13 years old, it was totally abnormal. Dad, I would like a Thompson Chain Reference Bible. For my 13-year-old birthday. My dad actually questioned me on it. He said, you don't have to get that for your birthday. I'll buy that for something else. He said, no, that's what I want for my birthday. Think about that. Some woman in a messed